Hello class. Today I will be taking up the second lecture of surveying. There are some topics like error and accuracy. We will discuss it today. So starting at, with in general, in dealing with measurements, it is important to distinguish between accuracy and precision. Precision is the degree of perfection used in the instrument, the method, and the observations. Accuracy is the degree of perfection obtained by you. Uh, Coming on to the accuracy, it depends on the precise measurement, the precise method you have adopted, and good planning. The use of precise instruments simplify the work, it saves time, and it provides economy. The use of precise methods eliminate to try to reduce the effect of all types of errors. Good planning, which includes proper choice and arrangement of survey control and the proper choice of instruments and methods for each operation, saves time and reduces the possibility of the errors. So, good instrument, good method, and good planning should be done to avoid errors and to achieve accuracy. The difference between a measurement and the true value of the quantity measured is the true error of the measurement. Uh, the difference between a measurement and the true value of the quantity measured is the true error of the measurement. This you have to remember. And it is never known since the true value of the quality is never known. However, the important function of the surveyor is to secure measurements which are correct within a certain limit of error prescribed by the nature and purpose of a particular survey. As you have seen in many instruments, they provide you with an accuracy of plus minus 5 or 10%. You can see on the instrument itself, it is written plus minus 5 or 10. So there is always a possibility of error. A discrepancy is the difference between two measured values of the same quantity. It is not an error. So it is just the difference between the measured values. It is not an error. A discrepancy may be small, yet the error may be great. If each of the two measurement contains an error that may be large in that case, it does not reveal the magnitude of systematic errors. Now we will discuss some sources of error from which the error arise. So error may arise from these three categories. First of all, the instrumentation. Since error may arise due to imperfection or faulty adjustment of the instrument with which measurement is taken, the equipment may be a faulty equipment. It may not be calibrated. For example, a tape may be too long or an angle measuring instrument may be out of adjustment. Such errors are known as instrumental errors. Again, coming to an example, as you can see in the figure, there are two weighing machines. A weight of 100 gram already checked have been placed on these two weighing machines. Now, this golden weighing machine is showing a weight of 100.3 gram, while the other black weighing machine shows it as 100 gram. So there is an error in the first instrument. Since it is showing a weight of 100.3 grams, there is a difference of 0.3 grams. So error of 0.3 grams have been noticed. So this type of error can uh, get arise from the instrument itself. Coming on to the next type of error, the next source of error rather, it is personal error. The error which may also arise due to want of perfection of human sight in observing and of touch in manipulating instruments. For example, an error may be there in thinking the level reading, in taking the level reading or reading an angle on the circle of a theodolite. Such errors are known as personal error. Here in the example, you can see uh, if you have to read a marking on a scale, you can view it from many different angles. But the correct way to measure and to avoid the error, you must always take the reading from the front or in a direction perpendicular to the scale. The correct angle is the one in which the line is perpendicular to the scale, while the incorrect angle can be any angle other than this right angle. So, a person may read different readings from different angles. To avoid this error, one must always read it from the front. So, this kind of error, which may arise due to the reading mistake of an individual, is termed as the personal error. Coming on to the third uh, source of error, it is the natural error. So, the instrumental error can be avoided by calibrating the instrument. The personal error may be avoided by the person itself, but this natural error cannot be avoided since it is provided by the nature. Error in surveying may also be due to variation in natural phenomena such as temperature, humidity, gravity, wind, refraction, and magnetic declination. If they are not properly observed while taking measurements, the result will be incorrect. For example, a tape may be 20 meters at 200 degrees centigrade, but its length will change if the field temperature is different. It may get expanded. The tape, will be of 20 meters, but when it will get expanded, its reading will automatically will give you a wrong value since it has been elongated, and it will always show a reading more than 20 meters, and you will not be able to find out until and unless you check it from a standard chain or standard tape. So the instrumental error and the personal error can be avoided at any stage, but this natural error cannot be avoided. It is provided by the nature itself. Here in the figure, you can see an instrument has been kept uh, on the ground, and while having the reading to a point which is far away from that point, due to refraction, you may have a reading different from its original position because the light rays may move towards the denser or rarer medium depending upon the atmosphere between the two instruments. So it may give a false reading. Now, coming on to the types of error, ordinary error in surveying met with in all classes of survey work may be classified as number one, mistakes, second is the accidental error, and third is the systematic or cumulative error. Now, coming on to the mistakes. Mistakes are error which arise from inattention, inexperience, carelessness, and poor judgment or confusion in the mind of the observer. It is due to the inattention, inexperience, carelessness, and poor judgment of the observer. They do not follow any mathematical rule, law of probability, and may be large or small, positive or negative. They cannot be measured. However, they can be detected by repeating the whole operation again. So you will get a difference in the reading when you conduct it again, since it is the error which arises due to the faulty reading of the observer. If a mistake is undetected, it produces a serious effect upon the final result. Hence, every value to be recorded in the field must be checked by some independent field observation. The following are the examples of the mistake which may arise due to inexperience or carelessness of the observer. Erroneous reading. Example, writing 69 in place of 96. So it is due to the absence of mind of the observer. Maybe here he is careless at that time. He may count 8 for 3. While reading, he may count at 8 written somewhere. He may count it as 3. While chaining, you have to remember the number of chaining you have done, and at the end of the survey you just multiply the number of chain readings into the length of the chain. Now, if you forget the chain length once, you may get an error. Okay, you may also get confused if you kept on measuring the field with a 30-meter chain and you assumed it to be a 20-meter chain. So will always be a difference of 10 meter in each reading as you proceed your survey. Making mistake in using a calculator. Now, this is just carelessness. You may press up addition button instead of multiplication. You may press subtraction button instead of division. So there may be a mistake in using the calculator also. So these all come under the category of mistakes. The second one is the systematic or cumulative error. A systematic or cumulative error is an error that under the same conditions will always be of the same size and sign. It will never change. It will be of same size and sign. Hence, it is cumulative. It will get on adding. A systematic error always follows some definite mathematical or physical law, and correction can be determined and applied. So, unlike the previous method, here we can apply some rules of mathematics and make the correction simultaneously. Such errors are of constant character and are regarded as positive or negative accordingly as they make the result great or small. It can make a huge change in the values obtained. Their effect is therefore cumulative. As already discussed, it will get on increasing, adding. So it is known as cumulative. For example, if a tape is p centimeters short and if it is stretched n times, the total error in the measurement of the length will be p into n centimeters, where n is the number of times the tape has been stretched and p is the length in centimeter, which is short or long. So the error length will be p into n centimeter. The systematic error may arise due to the variation of temperature, humidity, pressure, current velocity, curvature, refraction, etc. So these are all natural phenomena causing changes in the reading. Second is the faulty setting or improper leveling of any instrument and personal vision of an individual. So you may get a faulty reading if the instrument which you have kept on the tripod is not leveled. Before proceeding to the survey, you always have to center and level your instrument first, and after that you have to conduct your survey. So if you do not adjust or set your instrument, it may give you a faulty reading. Now coming on to the last error, which is the accidental error. Surveying errors can occur due to unavoidable circumstances like variation in atmospheric conditions, which are entirely beyond the control of the observer. The natural phenomena cannot be controlled by a human. It can never be controlled by a human. So it is always beyond the control of the observer. Error in surveying due to imperfection in measuring instruments and even imperfection of eyesight fall in this category. They may be positive or may change the sign. That means it may be positive or it may be negative. Now, coming on to the theory of probability, what do you understand by this theory of probability? We are talking about the error. So investigations of observation of various types shown that accidental errors follow a definite law, the law of probability. The observation of various types show that accidental errors follow a definite law, and that law is known as the law of probability. This law defines the occurrence of errors and can be expressed in the form of equations, which is used to compute the probable value or the probable precise or precision of a quantity. The most important feature of accidental or compensating, we can say accidental error as compensating error also. So the most important feature of accidental error which usually occur are, first of all, small error tend to be more frequent than the large ones. The small error occurs generally and are more frequent than the large errors. That is, they are most probable. Small errors are most probable. Secondly, positive and negative errors of the same size happen with equal frequency. That is, they are equally probable. That means, irrespective of the sign, the value of the error may be same. Hence, the positive and negative error of the same size happen with equal frequency. They are equally probable. Now, coming on to the last point, large errors occur frequently and are improbable. So there is a very less probability of large errors because uh, it has to pass the observation of the observer, the accuracy of the instrument. Hence, in general, large errors are improbable, while the small errors are always in a huge probability. Okay, now coming on to the principle of least square. So according to the principle of least square, the probable value of an observed quantity available from a given set of observation is the one for which the sum of square of error is a minimum. So the most probable value of an observed quantity from a given set of observation is the one for which the sum of the squares of error is a minimum. A minimum value of the square of the error is taken. So this is the principle of least square. Now coming on to the most probable value, which is very important. The most probable value of a quantity is the one which has more chances of being correct than any other. Again, the most probable value of a quantity is the one which has more chances of being correct than the other values. The most probable error is defined as the quantity which, when added to and subtracted from, it is both, it can be added to and subtracted from, the most probable value fixes the limits within which it is an even chance the true value of the measured quantity must lie. So the most probable value is the value which can be added or which can be subtracted from. The most probable value fixes the limit within which it is the chance that the true value exists. So as you can see in the slide, the most probable error of a single observation is calculated from the equation in front of you. It is ES, which is the error in single observation, is equal to plus minus. As you all know, plus minus means the it may be negative or positive, but with the same value as discussed earlier. So ES is equal to plus minus 0.6745 under root summation of V square by n minus 1, where V is the difference between any single observation and the mean of the series, and n is the total number of observations taken. The probable error of the mean of a number of observation of the same quantity is calculated from the equation EM. So what is EM? EM is the mean error. When you have many values and you don't have to calculate a single error value, you have to calculate the mean error value. So the mean error will be equal to plus minus 0.6745 under root summation of V square by n into n minus 1. So what is the difference between both the formulas? It's just the multiplication of n in the division. Rest all the things are same. We just have to multiply the number of times the error has been repeated. So you will get the mean value of the error. It can also be written, after simplifying, it can also be written as summation. It can also be written after simplification or replacing the value. It will be equal to ES, the error in single observation, divided by under root of n, the number of observations. As you can see that there is no difference other than under root n between the single observation error and the mean error. So ES is the probable error of single observation. V is the difference between any single observation and the mean of the series. EM is probable error of the mean. N is the number of observation in the series. Now you will get to know this, how to use this theory of probability for single error and mean error with an example. So let us take an example and proceed forward. The question says that in carrying a line of levels across a river, the following 8 readings were taken with a level under identical conditions. The conditions were same and 8 readings were taken. The readings are 2.322, 2.346, 2.352, 2.306, 2.312, 2.300, 2.306, and 2.326 meter. Now the question is, you have to calculate the probable error of single observation and probable error of the mean. We have discussed both the formulas ES and EM. We just have to apply. Now, how we have to apply when errors are given in the question itself? Now see the solution. You just have to make a table first in which you have to put all the values you have got in the question. The first column is the rod reading, the reading which you read from the rod. They are the readings which have been placed in the first column. The second column is the V. What was V? V was the difference between any single observation and the mean of the series. So first of all, we will have to calculate the mean. We will have to calculate the mean of the rod reading. So what we have to do, we have to add 2.322 plus 2.346 plus 2.352 plus 2.306 plus 2.312 plus 2.300 plus 2.306 plus 2.326. After adding all these 8 readings, we have to divide it with 8 to get the mean. So after dividing the summation of all these readings by 8, we will get 2.321, which will be the mean of all these readings. Now, how to get V? The V is the difference between the single observation and the mean of the series. You just have calculated the mean of the series. Now you have to just subtract the reading from the mean. So subtracting 2.322, the first reading, with the mean, that is 2.321, you will get 0.001. In the next row, you will subtract 2.346 by 2.321. You will get 0.025. Similarly, 2.352 minus 2.321, you will get 0.031. Similarly, you will get all the differences in each row. You will get all the values of V by having a difference between any single observation placed in the first column by the mean of the series which is placed at the bottom. Remember one thing, that it is the difference, not the subtraction. The difference between subtraction and difference is never negative, while the subtraction may be negative. It is not always negative, but it may be negative, whereas the difference is never negative. Coming on to the fourth row, it is 2.306, while the mean is larger than it, which is 2.321. So when you will subtract 2.306 from 2.321, you will get a value of minus 0.015, but you will not have to consider that minus sign, just because it is the difference. V is the difference, not the subtraction of the value. Okay, so uh, after having this difference of the single observation on the first in the first column and the mean of the series, you will get all the values of V in meters. Now what you have to do, you just have to have the square of the differences you have obtained. So squaring the first value in the second column, 0.001, having its square, you will get 0.000001. Okay, so you will just have to get the square of all these values. After getting the square, you have to do the summation which have been done in the bottom of the third column. You can see summation V square is equal to 0.002584. So now what you have to do, you have the equations, you have to just put the values you have obtained. So coming on to the first part of the question, you have to find out the probable error of single observation. The formula states ES is equal to plus minus 0.6745 under root of 0.002584, which is the summation of V square, and divided by n minus 1. The number of observations were 8 minus 1. After calculating it with the help of calculator, you will get a value plus minus 0.01295 meters. So it will be your first answer. Now coming on to the second one, you have to find out the probable error of the mean. So the probable error of the mean, you have the same formula, you just have to divide the answer by under root n. So the answer, which was plus minus 0.01295, is now divided by under root 8, which is the number of observation, and you will get it as plus minus 0.00458 meters. It will be your probable error of the mean. So this is how you find out the single or mean error when you have number of errors in the question. You may be asked about the single observation error or the probable error. I hope you are now to understand what error means and how you figure it out in terms of single observation or talking about the mean. Now, as discussed earlier, I have used the term accuracy and precision. They both are similar to each other, but they are not the same. Coming again, accuracy and precision are similar, but they are not the same. So what is the difference between them? Accuracy, it is the closeness with the true value of the quantity being measured, while precision is the measure of the reproducibility of the measurement. Coming on to the accuracy of a measurement means conformity to the truth, while precision is the term precise means clearly or sharply defined. Accuracy can be improved, but precision can never be improved. Accuracy depends upon simple techniques of analysis, while precision depends upon many factors and requires many sophisticated techniques of analysis. Accuracy is necessary but not sufficient condition for precision, and vice versa. For precision, it is necessary but not a sufficient condition for accuracy. So these are the very close differences between accuracy and precision. You may note it down when the difference between accuracy and precision are being asked. Now coming on to the scales, there are many scales you come across this subject surveying when you read values. There are four scales, which are plane scale, diagonal scale, vernier scale, scale of chords. Some scale you have uh, come across in the past in your plus two, while there may be some new scales to you. So coming on to the first scale, which is the plane scale. With plane, it becomes easier to measure two dimensions only. As for instance, measurements like units and lengths, meters and decimeters, etc., can be measured with the help of this plane scale. There is a term representative fraction, which is very important. It is a unitless relation between one unit on the map and however many units of the same type on the ground. So it is a comparison of the unit on the map and the ground. NRF, the representative fraction of 1 is to 24,000 means 1 inch on the map equals to 24,000 inches on the ground. And similarly, 1 centimeter on the map equals 24,000 centimeters on the ground. So the unit you have to put in the numerator and denominator will always be the same. So it will be in the terms of the same unit always. Here you can see some example, like for designation A, a 50 centimeter to a meter means a representative scale of 1 by 2. Like 50 centimeter divided by a meter, you have to put the same units. So it will be 50 centimeter divided by 100 centimeter, because 1 meter is of 100 centimeter. So 50 centimeter to a meter will be 50 divided by 100 centimeter. You will cancel out the centimeters and you will get 1 divided by 2. That will be the RF. Talking about the full scale means uh, whatever is the reading is divided by the reading of the scale itself. So it will be 1 upon 1, which is 1. Now coming on to the second designation, it is 40 centimeter to a meter. Now 40 centimeter is a smaller unit. It is kept as it is, and a meter is 100 centimeter. So when you divide 40 by 100 centimeter, you will get 1 upon 2.5. Similarly, 20 centimeter to a meter will be 20 divided by 100 centimeter, and you will get 1 divided by 5. It will be the representative fraction of that map. Similarly, for designation C, D, E, and F, you can see the number of representative fractions. The only thing you have to remember is that the unit in the numerator will be the same as of the denominator, and you simply have to divide it then. Now the diagonal scale. By applying diagonal scale, it becomes simpler to calculate 3 dimensions. Unlike the first scale, you always had 2 dimensions. Here in the diagonal scale, you have 3 dimensions like meter, decimeter, and centimeters. Units like unit, tens, and hundreds, yards, feet, and inches, and etc. A short length is segregated into number of parts by applying the standard or similar triangle under which sides are symmetrical. Now, here in the figure you can see there is a diagonal scale in which divisions have been made from 1 to 10. Triangle PQR, you can see on the perpendicular length, readings are mentioned from 1 to 10, and on the slant side, which is the hypotenuse, you can see that the scale is again divided into 10 equal parts. So applying the law of similarity of the triangles, the line 1 1 denotes that it is 1/10 of the baseline PQ. The line 2 2 denotes that it is 2 part of the total unit 10. It is the 2 part of the total unit 10 of the base PQ. Similarly, the line 9 9 denotes it is the 9 parts of the total scale 10 on the base PQ. So you can have 3 points PQR, you can have 3 dimensions PQR, and similarly with the help of similarity of the triangles, you can calculate the lengths. Coming on to the vernier scale, This scale or this device is most applied for estimating the fractional part of one of the minimal division concerning a graduated scale. So these type of scale are used when the readings are very small. It is generally comprised of small auxiliary scale which slides along of the main scale. You have seen this vernier scale and your physics lab experiment in 10 plus 2, where one scale was moving and the other scale was fixed. One was vernier scale and the other was main scale. The minimum count of the vernier or the least count of the vernier is equal to the variance among smallest division of the main division and the smallest division on the vernier scale. So, you know vernier scale, how to use it. You always see the coinciding point for the reading. So that was the vernier scale. Coming on to the scale of chords, graduated scale on which are given the length of the chords of arcs from 0 to 90 degree in a circle of given radius, used in measuring given angles and in plotting angles of given number of degrees. So here in the figure you can see there is a scale from 0 to 90 degree. Some chords are made and now lengths and angles of this scale. As you can see, a perpendicular the 90-degree angle on the chord will give you the scale. So with the help of chords, when we the lens are given and we find out angles, so that type of scale is known as the scale of chords. Now, the scale which you will use mostly in surveying will be the plane scale, the representative fraction, vernier scale. These all will be the scales which you will come across while surveying. So, a last thing which I will like to discuss is the error due to the use of wrong scale. If the length of existing on the plan or a map is determined by means of measuring wrong scale, the length so obtained will be incorrect. The true or correct the line is given by the relation correct length is equal to, you have to find out the correct length and you have already done a mistake or you have found an error. How you will correct it? Correct length will be equal to the RF of the wrong scale divided by the RF of the correct scale into the length which you have measured. If the area of the map or plan is calculated with the help of using a wrong scale, the correct area is given by correct area is equal to RF of the wrong scale divided by RF of the correct scale whole square into the area you have calculated. Now you will be able to get it with the help of an example. Where measured the distance between 2 points on the plan drawn to a scale of 1 centimeter is equal to 40 centimeter and the result was 468 meters. Later, however, he discovered that he used a scale of 1 centimeter to 20 meter find the true distance between the points. So there are two scale, 1 centimeter to 40 meter and the second one is 1 centimeter to 20 meter. You took a wrong scale, hence the reading will differ. The result which you have got 468 meter will be a wrong distance. So the measured length is 468 meter. The RF of the wrong scale which you have taken was 1 centimeter is equal to 20 meter. Now you will have to convert this to the RF. Keeping the units same, you will get an RF of 1 divided by 2000. and the RF of the correct scale will be 1 divided by 4000. Hence, the correct length as per the formula is the RF of the wrong scale, which is 1 divided by 2000, divided by the RF of the correct scale, which is 1 divided by 4000, into the length which you have measured, which is 468 meter. After calculating, you will get the length as 936 meter, which is now the correct measurement. Hence, you can see that an error provided and or incorporated in the reading while taking the reading, you may get a huge amount of error. So this was for the day. Now we will discuss the remaining part in the next lecture. That's all for the day, class. Thank you.